Hello, and welcome to Odds on Premier League. It's match day 20 already, the last one in 2023, although few fixtures of this match day 20 will be played already in 2024. To analyze all matches and to share his tips and predictions, as always, we have Tom Rennie. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing very well. I can't believe we're at game week 20 and the calendar year 2024. I feel like it's gone in about 6 seconds, but let's hope we've all made lots of lovely old money.
Hopefully everyone could start the year, the 2024 in style. Before we get going with the show, do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Now let's go, guys. All right, Tom, the first match we got is Luton at home against Chelsea. 2 consecutive wins for Luton, 3 in the last 6 for them. That was a ridiculous second half in Bramall Lane on Boxing Day, with Sheffield turning the game around and then scoring 2 own goals for Luton to win it. They are now in touching distance of Everton, of Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, and also with a game in hand for Luton. At home this season, Luton has been amazing against Liverpool, against Arsenal, against Manchester City, even if they only got 1 point out of those 9 points in play. I know odds of 5.7, as we see there on the screen, they tell us of a risky bet, but there are footballing reasons to believe that Luton can win this game against this dreadful Chelsea. Even a double chance, and 2.5 is very decent. How do you see it, Tom?
I think the odds of 570 for Luton to win this, it's like the 26th of December when you're sitting in your kitchen and all the chocolate cake and all the chocolates and all the sweets are still there, and you're thinking, should go on my diet today, but I'll just have one Quality Street. And then 20 minutes later, you're gorging yourself on strawberry creams. This is such a delicious little bet here because, Luton Town, you make some great points about Luton. They have done so much better than all of us predicted. And that is potentially condescending. If it is, Luton fans will need to deal with it. We didn't think anything of you when you came up to the Premier League. But the way they have performed, certainly in the last 5 or 6 games, yes, they haven't won them all, but that includes the loss against Man City, the loss against Arsenal, and the 2 straight victories over Newcastle and Sheffield United. There's something happening. Whether there is an inspiration after what happened with Tom Lockyer, we wish him well. Whether they have had that all season long, I think they probably have, that if we go down, it'll be scrap and fight. But also, what I love about Luton now is they've done something magical that I think about the great teams from football history. They've got lots of players you haven't heard of, young players, tenacious players, high in energy and effort, low in quality. And then they've brought in a couple of old campaigners that we all know from the Premier League annual of 7 years ago. And Josh Townsend has been superb in the last couple of games. A player who was a regular with England when Roy Hodgson was in charge back in 2016, 2015, that era. And Ross Barkley, who is only 29, I think, has been sensational. Every time you watch Luton, you start to remember why Chelsea wanted him, why Everton didn't want to let him go, why he's got 15-odd England caps. Really good footballer. And the engine is there, the fitness seems to be there, and the ability to hold the ball in tight circumstances for Luton and then find that release to Doughty, whoever's making the run, Adebayo ahead of him. It's been fantastic. So loads of credit to Luton. 4 wins across the season does not represent how good they have been. And 2 wins at home and 5 defeats does not represent how good they have been. And look at the scorelines too. When they have been beaten, it's been a close scoreline. 1-1 draw against Liverpool is notable. I mentioned the Arsenal game and the Man City game, but also 1-0 victory over Newcastle, 2-1 victory over Palace. It is going to be tight, I think, this game, whatever happens. And to Chelsea, it's so hard, isn't it? It's so difficult. Look, we got it right last week. We went with a Chelsea win, and a Chelsea win was delivered. It was narrow. It was squeaky. We went with a group bet, I think, in that game, and that's what came in, 2-1 to Chelsea. So it's always a pretty comfortable bet I'm going to make with Chelsea every week right now, because if they win, it'll be narrow. They are not going to be impressive and score 5 or 6 goals, but they also might lose by those scorelines as well. I think the fact it was such a youthful team against Crystal Palace showed. I think it was Chelsea's youngest ever 11 they played in the Premier League. And I think that's more what Pochettino wants from Chelsea. Young players he can mould, not old players who have to deliver today. The pressure seems to be off with Chelsea this season, which is a bit weird. It's almost like the owners are kind of given up on the plan and are giving a coach the ability to coach a team. Weird. What do you do with this game? What do you do with it? Well, firstly, I'm taking Luton to win with those odds. I'm just going to take it because that is worth a small lump of your money because Luton can win this game. Do people watching, do you and I feel Luton can win this game? And I think yes. And if that's the case, these are really, really good odds. So my top tip is take that. That was 5.25 last night. It's now 5.7 this morning. That might get to 6 by the time we get to the game. So I'm going to take that. I also don't discount the draw because, again, Luton have been able to hold everyone this season to a tight match. I think about the 1-1 with Liverpool. I can see it being vaguely similar. Draw on its own brings you in at over 4. That's nice. If you think Chelsea, go with the group bet again because that brings you just above the threshold, which is 3 or 2-1, however you like it. Chelsea win 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1 brings you in at 3. So if you go Chelsea, go narrow to make some money, but the Luton odds are good.
There in the comments, someone saying both teams to score, and we mentioned Arsenal, City, and what else? And one more game where we mentioned of the Liverpool. There you go. So in all those games, Luton scoring, both teams to score 1.80. But yes, I feel actually very enticed of that 5.7 for a Luton win too, Tom. The next one we got is Aston Villa Burnley. I don't know what's more painful, to be honest, for Villa, if they 1-1 with Sheffield on Matchday 18 or the defeat in Old Trafford after being 2 goals up on Boxing Day. Maybe the take from Tuesday, Tom, is that there is nothing wrong sometimes in sitting deep, especially away, and when you are winning and when a high line is exactly what your rival needs to hurt you because they have quick runners. Anyway, I remember you, Tom, saying that watching Burnley Everton, that you had the feeling that it was like men against children. And I had the feeling this time that we might see something similar again on Saturday, in this case in Villa Park with Aston Villa and Burnley.
Yeah, look, I think that I was stunned, frankly, by the way Unai Emery played in that game against Manchester United, especially at 2-0 up. At 2-0 up, to not then sit deep, low block, play the game out against a team who have struggled every single week with the low block. It's why we went with West Ham to beat them a couple of weeks ago. Because if you sit deep on Man United and break, you're going to get something from the game. They cannot break you down. And at 2-0 up, it was like watching Tottenham. And, you know, we know Unai Emery as one of the best managers of European football in the last 10, 15, 20 years. But he is also a pragmatist. So I couldn't believe he went all Postecoglou and decided to be like, this is my philosophy and this is what we do. What? So I didn't get that. I didn't expect it. And I really thought second half they would just shut the game down. So really couldn't believe it. And the Sheffield United game, there is a pressure to going top that I think was evident. And I think maybe for the first time this season, Villa started to believe their hype a bit. And that affected the result. I think that'll be over now. I think that 2 weeks of our Villa in the title race, and of course they are because of their points tally, but realistically they're not because we think Villa, Liverpool and City will pull away, and they will. But I think maybe Villa will stop believing their own hype and take it out on Burnley. And you look at the home form this season, take away that Sheffield United draw, which no one predicted, least of all me. 9 games, 8 victories, 1 draw, 26 scored, 6 conceded, 20 plus goal difference and 25 points. I mean, that is extraordinarily good. Yeah. And for Burnley, I won't waste too much time on Burnley. If they win this, it will be a shock to me. I know the last couple of games there's been improvements, but they met Brighton at the right time. And I think the Fulham performance was 2 spectacular goals. They are getting better, but I think Fulham, without Raul Jimenez, who was suspended for that game, again lost that focal point. Jimenez stepping up to his old ways and looked better. Without him, Fulham looked worse. I think you've got to look here at Burnley getting beaten heavily because the odds are no good for an Aston Villa win. Burnley's away form across the season, take away the last 2, is 14 conceded, 5 defeats. It's 2 victories across the campaign, but only 1 in 5. And I think that Villa will need to take this out on someone. Watkins has not scored for a couple of games. Diaby's been in, then he's been out. There's a few players that have just dropped off. I'd back Villa here to win this comfortably. You've got to look at the handicap market. 1.4 is no good. The best I can find is a -2. A -2 Asian handicap is at 3.5. Now, that's actually quite conservative. Like, do we think that they can win this 3-0 against the team who are second bottom? Yeah. I think That's pretty reasonable. So if you're going to go Villa, go with a handicap. That's a conservative handicap. You can go more wild if you want to, but that's what I'm taking.
Yeah, and also it's true what you mentioned that Ollie Watkins haven't scored for a while, but if they're gonna win comfortably, you will expect him to maybe to score in this game. So Villa to win plus Ollie Watkins to score anytime, that could take the odds to 2.6 in case anyone is wondering. The next one we got, Tom, is Crystal Palace Brentford. Only Burnley has put her record at home this season than Crystal Palace. Just one win in 9 games for Palace. In the last 3 months, they can show only 2 wins in the Premier League matches, and both of them outside of their home. One in Old Trafford, the other one in Turf Moor against Burnley. I'm surprised a little bit, and maybe also a little bit worried with Brentford at this point. 6 defeats in the last 7 for them, 4 points above the relegation zone. I can't see them fighting relegation in April, but they need to wake up quickly, Tom, that's for sure. My view maybe is here is like we are heading for a draw, but the odds on Brentford are also not bad, despite this bad moment that I just told.
If we were recording this a week ago,
yeah,
I would have said, what's that sound? Is it jingle bells? But of course, the jingle bells are gone now, so it must be the sound of a match screaming draw. Screams draw like a game has not screamed draw before. And you can get a draw here at relatively low odds of 3.45. Usually the draw is up near a 4. So people fancy a draw here. Why? Because you have 2 teams, to your introduction, that are severely limited. In terms of Crystal Palace, at home this season, it's been nearly wretched. 9 home matches, 1 victory. That is atrocious home form for a team who are better than that, for an atmosphere that is better than that. 3 draws, one of which was the game against Brighton before that. And yes, they've had a little injury crisis. To not have Eze, to not have Elise. They are both back now. To not have Decore too, which I think is gargantuan loss in midfield, who covered so much ground and stopped so much the opposition were doing. Lots of issues now for Crystal Palace, but they're a conservative team who will look to nick a goal when the chance comes, as they showed against Chelsea last week, but they aren't going to boss you and dominate you. And that's not a bad thing if you're good at taking the chance when it comes. Crystal Palace, though, haven't in recent times. For Brentford, I actually think they might be in some trouble. I'm not that confident they won't be involved in a relegation scrap come the end of the season, because in the end, Leo, you've worked in this league for a long, long time, and what I think comes to the fore after a while is the quality of your squad. Yeah. And I think for a while you can battle, for a while you can scrap, for a while you can be the best organised, most hardworking, but then you lose your goalkeeper to Arsenal, then you lose Tony to whatever he went for, then you lose Brian and Mbeumo, then you lose another and another. Rico Henry's absence has been huge for Brentford. He played every single game in Brentford's team since promotion, and suddenly all the cogs have gone. And the backups, they're not good enough. Brentford can't attract players. They don't pay the wages. They don't have the pedigree. That's not me being insulting. That's just the facts of the matter. I hope it changes for them, but they don't have it. So I think they might be in some trouble, and they're going to have to scrap for a draw here. And I think this might be potentially one of the toughest games to watch this season. I think you're going to have 2 teams here who are going to do anything not to lose, which is right. That's the right thing to do. They could both get severely dragged in 14th and 15th, respectively, these two, or the other way round. So I couldn't, in good faith, pick a winner here from 2 teams that haven't won a game between them in the last 4. They have 2 points between them in the last 8 matches, right? So go for the draw. I think it's going to be 1-1, personally, because it just feels like one scores, they back off, they level it. You've seen this game a million times. Yeah. Draw 3.45 this morning. Draw on both teams' score brings you up to 4.33. You don't really need it, but you can take it. And a 1-1 scoreline. I never say go on exact scores, but if you wanted to, you get 1-1 for 6. It's going to be 1-1. So, it's up to you.
And that's also what the head-to-head is screaming. A draw on the comment section as well. All going for that in this one. And actually, someone like Millie pointing as well to your correct score of 1-1. Then from Selhurst Park, we move to the Etihad for Manchester City, Sheffield United. Looking at those odds on Sheffield to win, sometimes you get the feeling of like, what if? But of course not. Of course not. It's not going to happen. But still, you might end up thinking, why not? City 5 points behind Liverpool, Tom, with one game in hand. Maybe because Arsenal defeat happened just hours ago, is still fresh. But I'm having the growing feeling, I think you mentioned just before, that 2024 could, in the end, just be a title race of two, Liverpool and Manchester City all over again. Pep team was very good in Goodison Park against Everton. Foden magnificent. Julian scored. The only negative, Stones going out injured. The question is, Tom, which Asian handicap are you picking this time?
Yeah, let's not waste too much time on this one. Look, you're not going to go Sheffield United. Even at 43, I wouldn't put 50 pence of my money on it. So
No.
I'm not doing it. Look, Man City this year at home, 3 straight draws. You might think to yourself, the form guide's not in their favour. But this is child's play for Manchester City. It doesn't matter if there's no Haaland or De Bruyne or Stones or anyone really. They could win this one with a bunch of youth team players you've not heard of yet. So obviously don't bet on 1.1. I mean, that is extraordinary. I've never seen odds like this, I don't think, for a game between two teams in the same league. The over 4.5 goals in the match brings you in at 2.88. That gives you a little bit of leeway if Sheffield United do get a consolation goal, because City have been conceding a cheeky one several times this season. They have done. So look, let's not waste too much time. City and over 4.5 goals in the match is 2.88. Man City with a -3 handicap brings you in at 2.75. If you want to go for -4, that'll bring you in over 2-1. That might be worth it. I'll stick at -3 just to make enough money to get through the day. But it depends if City really want it. If City really want it and they want to crush them, they can win this game 10-0. But what we've seen a lot this year is a couple of goals. That'll do you. Rest the legs and move on. So I'll just take the -3.
Perfect. So we leave quickly behind Manchester City, Sheffield United, and we move on to an interesting one here, Tom, which is Wolverhampton against Everton. I don't know exactly where the hammer is going to fall in the end, but we actually have very good odds on home win and an away win in this one. And if something looks certain for me here, is like both teams to score, because Everton, Tom, is the 5th best away team so far, collecting 16 points on the road, and Wolves not only had an amazing Boxing Day in West London, but they've been pretty decent at home against City, against Tottenham, against Chelsea. And after those 4 wins in a row, Everton is now at the back of 2 consecutive defeats, although with the Spurs, they deserve much more in North London. What's your take here?
What a game. What a game this is going to be. I'm really looking forward to it, actually, which I can't believe I'm saying with Wolves going up against Everton. I do think, to your point, betting on this will be hard, because they are so well matched in so many areas. For Pedro Neto, for Wolverhampton Wanderers, look at Dwight McNeil. For Everton, for James Tarkowski in his brilliant form for Everton, you can look at Craig Dawson, who's an injury doubt, but you can look at him for this season. Very similar players. I think Everton have got a better goalkeeper in Jordan Pickford over Jose Sarr, but on the upside of the field, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is fit, and he looks fit, him and Hwang Hee-chan have both been superb this season for both teams. So, I could go on and on and on about this, because they're so brilliantly evenly matched, and 2 teams that are being coached really well, and a group of players who are listening to the manager and delivering on instruction. That's why they're doing well. Players are executing plans well. And when that doesn't happen, that is when you get what's happening to Brentford and 1 or 2 other teams, and Forest this season. Wolves I really like. I really like them because of they carry the ball up the field, maybe better than any other team in the league. If you're going to play the way Wolves play, individuals need to carry the ball 20 yards. And in people like Mateus Cunha, they have some of the best ball carriers in the league. And so that's really helped them win big games. And look at the home form too. It's 2 defeats this season, 4 victories, but unbeaten in the last 5, and some really big victories in 3 wins in the last 4. The Tottenham win was fantastic. The Chelsea win, their average, I know, was really, really impressive. The Newcastle draw in this run was also pretty impressive. They try and score goals. They are never beaten. And at Molineux, they are always going to be a tricky customer. But with Everton, even in the games they've lost, you made the point a moment ago, and you were absolutely right. They should have beaten Tottenham 6-2. They had so many chances. And I don't even criticize them too much for missing them, because the one that hits the bar and hits Vicario's knee, that's incredibly bad luck. It was just one of those days. Andre Gomez coming back in was spectacular. I thought he'd retired, I'll be honest with you. And he comes in at Tottenham out of nowhere, and I thought was the best player on the field. Played again in midweek, and hopefully he'll be fit for this too. That's a huge boost. What a player to bring back out of nowhere into this team. The cliche is like a new signing, but that is like a new signing, because I'd forgotten he was still on the payroll. And the away form, you're right to point out too, 5 victories across the season. The loss against Tottenham last time out, they shouldn't have won. Before that, it was a run of victories. It's tricky. I got to go with gut feeling here, and I'm going to go with that Everton away form, only because the loss against Tottenham should not have happened. Before that, it was win after win after win after win. And then just to win this game, Everton straight up win is 2.85. That's near double your money. I really, really like that. So take Everton to win. I also think if you want to lift that higher, which you don't need to, I think Wolves are going to score in this game, but I think Everton will outscore them. I look back to the Brentford game that Everton won. I think it's going to be quite similar to that. I think Everton can outscore Wolves. I think they'll be more muscular. I think they'll be more confident. And I think they've got goal scorers in their team that will take advantage of any reason why Wolves start to press forward. So both teams to score brings you in at 5. And I like this too. I've started to enjoy these bets recently. Cagey first half, expansive second half, draw at half-time. 2 teams that won't take too many risks in the first half. They'll take more as the game goes on. Everton will win it in the second half. 6.5 for a draw, and then Everton win, which follows a pattern of several away games for Everton this season.
But definitely a very interesting match to watch. Wolverhampton and Everton. The last one on Saturday, then Tommy's Nottingham Forest, Manchester United. A massive win for Forest against Newcastle with Chris Wood, the hat-trick hero. It was their first win in the last 8, and the first one with Nuno Espirito Santo as the new manager. Playing at home, Forest has only missed to score against Everton and Tottenham this season. Manchester United is mostly black or white away from Old Trafford. 4 wins and 4 defeats. They hardly settled for a draw away from home. But despite the 3 goals against Villa, Tom, they are not a high-scoring side this season, so it is hard, at least for me, to imagine a very eventful afternoon in the City ground. Is this one a low-scoring affair for you?
Oh, yeah, it has to be. Has to be. Again, in games like this, you have to look at the form, but you also have to look at the managers. And Nuno Espirito Santo, to your point, is a conservative manager. I think that there was some brilliant breakaways in the Newcastle game. And I watched them against West Ham not too long ago, Forest. And on the break with Elanga and Gibbs White, and surprisingly now Chris Wood, their breakaway play has been absolutely fantastic. So I think that's how they're going to play again. The trouble is, so will Manchester United. This is going to be similar to the West Ham game, not similar to the Newcastle game for Forest or the Villa game for Manchester United. Nuno is clever, he is canny, and he knows that every point matters for Nottingham Forest. He has been tasked with keeping them in the league, and I think he will. And for Manchester United, again, when a team is up the field, they can score against you. Feels like a rhyme, this. But every time they back off, they simply aren't going to. And we've seen it time after time after time. I don't know if it's Ten Hag, and he can't coach it. I don't know if it's the players who can't deliver it. I don't know the answer anymore to Manchester United, but I do know if you play in one way, they're very unlikely to beat you. And to be fair, that's true of a lot of mid-table clubs. You do that against West Ham or Wolves or Brentford or Chelsea, then the game is going to be like that. You only really get a lot of risk and reward from the teams at the very top who know they can score when they flood forward. Beyond that, most good teams play like that when they haven't got a squad like City or whatever. So, tricky. Look, I am still not confident in Forest because although the victory was impressive against Newcastle, the home form has tapered off. I don't think the quality of the squad is there overall. I think defensively, I like Murillo, but I think he's more of a beach footballer than a Premier League central defender. I'm not a fan of either goalkeeper. Matt Turner's now back in goal. Not a big fan. And offensively, I know Chris Wood scored a hat-trick against Newcastle, but beyond that, he's not done anything for Forest in his time there. And losing Awoniyi out for another couple of months is a huge loss. And United, look at the away form this season. It's actually okay. 4 victories from 9. And you look at the Fulham game, you look at the Everton game, which was 3-0, but then they had like 4 shots. You look at the Newcastle game, they lost, but it was tight. Liverpool got a draw. West Ham, look, they lost 2-0, but it was still very, very even. First goal was always going to win that game. If United got it, they would have got on to win. So I think Man United are going to win because I don't have any trust in Forest. I know it's weird to have trust in Manchester United, but they have been involved in real tight away games this season. So no point betting on Manchester United straight up, I don't think. That's slightly under what I would want. But if they win this game in the second half with a late goal, Fernandes at Fulham style, draw at halftime, United win it late on. We saw again against Villa, they get better in the second half. You get 5.5. 0-0 at half-time. United win it as the game goes on. I've also found a couple of others I quite like. United win and only United score. Essentially win to 0. That brings you in at 4, which is quite nice. That's 1-0. That's 2-0. I can see that. I have issues envisaging Forest scoring in this game. And just a 1-0er. Again, I've picked out 2 exact scores today, which is not kind of my thing. But a 1-0 win for Manchester United is 8.5. Now, I don't advise it on a regular basis, but 8.5 for 1-0 Manchester United, I think that's worth a little one.
Who knows? Maybe it's Holland again. Finally, after finding the back of the net. Yes, in the comment section, some people saying both teams to score, but mostly there were some Nottingham Forest to win, some Man United to win, and over 2.5 goals as well. So the next one is the first game on Sunday, which is Fulham Arsenal, Tom. For Fulham, the honeymoon of 3 wins in 4 matches, scoring 16 times, is now definitely over. 3 consecutive defeats, conceding 8 goals and scoring none this time. So they lack a little bit of consistency there. They will be capable, I believe, of pushing Arsenal for moments. Maybe they will control the match for periods, but not long enough to claim something big. Arsenal needs to bounce back quickly after what happened last night, although they lacked a little bit of ideas in attack yesterday. But even if Fulham tries to defend in a similar fashion to West Ham, they don't have the know-how, and neither the players to produce the same. There is not much value on Arsenal to win. The goals market starts making sense above 3. How do you see it?
Screams under. Look at the various unders in this game, because Arsenal need this win. They need it really badly with the way the form has tapered off over the Christmas period. And their away form has tapered off as well. They've got 5 victories this season, but 2 in 5, 2 defeats in the last 5, and a draw as well in their last away game. Things are just coming off the rails a little bit for Arsenal. And the reason is they just don't score enough goals to be champions. If you look at just away goals scored this season, City 21, Liverpool 17, Tottenham 22, Arsenal 14. West Ham have more away goals. Bournemouth have more away goals. Brighton have more away goals. That is simply not good enough for a team who are trying to be champions. 36 goals scored home and away is the lowest in the top 4, lowest in the top 5. They do have more than West Ham overall, but only by a couple. They are scoring on par with a West Ham team who, look, I like West Ham right now, but they are not known as a free-scoring, free-flowing, they're going to batter you 5-0 team. They play they play the advantages, right? So that's the issue. And briefly on Fulham, nice little purple patch. I think that was the season. That's the last time Fulham do anything memorable in the entire campaign. It was lovely to see Raul Jimenez come back for that little flurry, but his sending off against Newcastle gets him out the last couple of games, comes back for this one. But I think they're okay. They're a perfectly average, going to finish 13th Premier League team. They aren't going to get much better than that, and I think Arsenal are going to be too much for them. You've got to look at how Arsenal win this game. 1.61 is no good to you. You don't have the confidence in them in this market. I know Fulham at 6.2 is tempting like other scorelines we've seen today, but I just think Arsenal are going to grind out a victory. Look at some of the grind out wins that Arsenal have had this season. This is going to follow a similar pattern. I'm thinking about the Brentford win. I'm thinking about the Newcastle victory from last season. There are games that Arsenal are involved in where they just find a way to win. And I really fancy them for doing that here. So Arsenal win to 0. That's a 1-0 victory, which I fancy. Brings you to 2.63. Arsenal went under 2.5 goals in this match. That's a 1-0 or 2-0 victory. Feels very likely to me. Brings you in at 4. If you feel less confident, you can go under 3.5. That brings you in at 2.25. But Arsenal's defence remains the reason why they're up there. Not the offense, the defense. 18 goals conceded is incredibly impressive. Away from home this season, 8 goals conceded. 3 of them are against Luton. So it's only 5 goals in 8 games. If you take Luton out of the equation, really impressive. Gabriel's fit. Saliba is fit. Raya is fit. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But the rest of the front line defense is going to be there. So look at the form. Look at what Arsenal need. They win this in a squeaker, and you'll make some decent money if you go conservative.
I personally really like that first tip of Arsenal to win 2-0, 263 is very, very, very good one. The last Premier League match in 2023 is Tottenham Bournemouth. We all know the injuries that in the Tottenham has, what they're going through now. But they faced a Brighton side yesterday who has been also dealing with the same or worse injury nightmares, and they still produced a magnificent performance last night. And then I'm looking at Bournemouth and the odds for an away win at 4.25. And again, for me, it makes footballing sense to feel enticed to that. 6 wins in the last 7 for Bournemouth. Everton visited Tottenham, we said that before, on Matchday 18, and they were very unlucky not to take a point, at least plenty of chances. And if your centre backs are going to be Emerson and Davies, Emerson and Dyer, or Dyer and Davies, you will concede chances for sure. Dominic Solanke to score anytime, 3.2. But will you trust Bournemouth here?
I trust Dominic Solanke, and I'll be taking Dominic Solanke to score any time in this game and every Bournemouth game for some time. He has been spectacular in the last 2 months, Dominic Solanke. And it's incredible to think that Bournemouth didn't win a Premier League game till late October, because you look at them now and you think, how is that team this team? And I do think Andoni Iraola, he came into the Premier League and tried to do his thing. And I think, like a lot of managers, was like, oh, actually, I can't do this here. But what some managers do, looking at you, Ange Postecoglou, 1 or 2 others, is they stick with what they want to bring to Tottenham. I think Iraola was like, right, okay, well, let's change it. Let's change it. Let's be a touch more conservative. Let's rely more on Dominic Solanke because we can. Let's be a bit more all action in terms of getting more bodies forward, but those bodies must remain back. Maybe the fullbacks don't overlap as much. Maybe he stopped doing inversion of those fullbacks that he was trying to do for the first couple of weeks. He's looking at some of these guys and thinking, I've got some wild cards in Semenyo and Tavernier and these guys, but I need them to work first and foremost. So, incredible credit to Andoni Iraola. He has adapted to the league whilst also playing his way. And that's incredibly impressive. There's a lot of coaches that have not been able to do that, and they've been sacked. Steve Cooper is an example of that. So credit to him. And with Tottenham, I just don't know what to expect. I do feel sorry for him. I take your point on them having a similar number of injuries to Brighton, but to lose James Maddison, to lose Mickey van der Ven, to lose Christian Romero, to still not have Rodrigo Bentancur, that is 4 players who I think could play in any team in the country. And I know we could say that at Brighton. I get that point, but I think that early success was so built on those 4 plus Son and Kulusevski and Richarlison who are fit. And without that, it just hasn't worked. The Tottenham game against Chelsea obviously knocked their confidence massively, and I think they've struggled to recover from it since then. Every now and then you've got to be pragmatic. Postecoglou ain't going to do that. And I think actually the Brighton game you referred to on the Thursday, I think 4-2 flattered Tottenham. I watched it back this morning. It could have been 10-0. Like, you can't, like, there was just no thought into playing that way against Brighton. You're just going to get beat. You might score a couple of consolation goals and bully for you. You're going to get beat if you play that way at Brighton. So lots of doubts about Tottenham. 1.77 is no good to you. So how do they win this game? If you think Tottenham are going to win, take both teams to score. That brings you up to 2.63. This has got goals written all over it. All sorts of over score lines. Yeah. Look at this game being over 3.5, over 4.5 goals maybe, because there's money to be made in that market. Goals, 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 average defenses, good offenses, really good strikers. That's the Tottenham scoreline. Bournemouth to win at 4.6. I'm just running home with that. I was going to come up with a few others for Bournemouth, but that's really, really nice. Bournemouth's away form right now is their form is unbelievable. Yeah. So across the last 9 games, it's 7 victories. Away from home, it's 5 victories, 4 victories in their last 5, which is just incredible what they've been able to do. And they've just got the bit between their teeth right now. So Bournemouth went there and won last season. I think they can do it again. It depends on who your gut says. If Tottenham win, make it both teams to score. If you fancy Bournemouth, just take it.
Yeah, if they've done it in Old Trafford, why they cannot do it in North London as well for Iraola's team? Then, Tom, New Year's Day, we have Liverpool-Newcastle. Depending on Arsenal result, Liverpool may start 2024 in second place. But anyway, they're in a fine moment. Everything seems to click. And the best example I found of that is like the left-back position. No Andy Robertson. Tsimikas does the job perfectly. Tsimikas gets injured, and then Joe Gomez looks like the right-footed Roberto Carlos against Burnley. They have a fit Diogo Jota back again. In midfield, apart from McAllister out injured, everyone is playing their part. Darwin scored finally after 12 games against Burnley. Gakpo is doing well. Maybe the only one who needs to do a little bit more, I believe it's Luis Diaz, but still, they're in a very fine moment. I can't see how this tired and leggy Newcastle can cause any problems in Anfield, Tom.
You know what's funny is if you asked me this morning, I asked you or we asked our viewers, who's top of the league? People would have said Arsenal. Is it Man City? Who's top? Liverpool are top. And I think that's been a common narrative. They're top of the league and no one's really noticed. And we haven't noticed because when Liverpool have been top of the league in recent times, we've all been gushing about how incredible, the Mane, Firmino, Salah front three was, or how amazing Van Dijk had been, or, you remember those days.
Yeah.
And now you're a bit like, they're not hitting it. There's something missing. They're not thrashing teams. They're not keeping many clean sheets. They're solid and unspectacular. Beyond the West Ham winning the Carabao Cup, which was just as much about West Ham rotation and not being that interested as it was about Liverpool being good. I'm not trying to take credit away from them, but they rotated to Liverpool. It was a second string for both to a degree. But in the league, it's not quite clicked, but they have won games. Like, were they amazing against Burnley? No. But they got the job done. They won. Were they amazing against Crystal Palace? I would argue before Ayew was sent off, they were going to go on to lose that game. But they keep finding ways to win. And that's what's interesting. This is not a Liverpool that we have seen under Jurgen Klopp in his 8.5 or 9 years of being there. This is a functional Liverpool team that I think have got so much room for growth. And I think we are going to get a title race this year between Liverpool and Man City. I think you've got two teams here that are more than capable of 90-plus points because they're both going to get so much better as the season goes on. In terms of Newcastle, it's you can't feel too much sympathy for a team owned by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You just can't. None of us can, right? And they've got issues because they can't pump money into the club as they would wish because of financial fair play. So there are issues there that in time will be resolved. But if we did feel sympathy for anyone right now, it might be them. The injury list remains enormous. Players like Kieran Trippier have played almost every minute of every game, and he looks exhausted. To not be able to make the rotation for this month has been really tough. For Eddie Howe, I think the run of form has been awful. I don't know how long he can hold on there, frankly, with the 4 defeats in the last 5, 1 win in 5, however you want to look at it. I think that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is not going to accept, I had an injury to Harvey Barnes, and so I couldn't win any games of football. I think they'll say, where's my wins? It ain't coming here, I don't think. I think that you look at Liverpool's recent form and you look at Liverpool win unspectacularly. Liverpool win to 0 in this game brings you in at 3.00. That's the 2-1 mark we're looking for. And if you look at recent victories they have not conceded too many goals. In fact, 3 of the last 5 they haven't conceded. One was the 0-0 draw against Manchester United, where they had a record number of shots, beaten Brentford 3-0, beaten Forest 3-0. It feels like a 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. Liverpool win to 0 is 3. Under 3.5 goals, and Liverpool brings you in at 2.75. Under 2.5 is slightly more risky. That's only 1-0 or 2-0. That brings you in at 5. So all scenarios where Liverpool win without conceding, without really entertaining too much is what I like here.
Yeah, like for example, Carol Mitchell is thinking Liverpool under 2.5 goals, small 2-0 win, but for sure a clean sheet there against Newcastle. And the last one, Tom, we got on Matchday 20 is West Ham Brighton, a clash of styles. We had the first episode in the Amex this season, and West Ham won it with the counter-attack masterclass. Yesterday they produced another defending masterclass as well against Arsenal. 3 attacks, 2 goals and 1 penalty for them. Shane Paquetá went out injured. I believe the script in the London Stadium is going to be the same we had yesterday in the Emirates. One team having the ball, the other not having a single problem with that. 33 points in 19 games for West Ham this season so far, when last season they collected 40 in 38 games. I mean, Moyes has delivered in that case. Is both teams to score maybe the answer in this one?
I don't know. I mean, on West Ham, this is their best ever first half of a Premier League season. And in recent years, they have qualified for European football. They finished 5th in seasons gone by, 5th, 6th, and 7th place finishes. Those seasons weren't as good as this one in terms of points. And they have, it is so tough to watch sometimes, right? And I say this a lot. Yeah. Sometimes, especially if you pay to go, it can be really tough to watch. But David Moyes has no interest in the football. He has no interest in holding it. He has no interest in keeping it. And this is not a Sean Dyche kind of lob it long, knock it on kind of football. It is long, but direct on the floor passes. Into feet, knock it back, onto a runner. Into feet, knock it back, onto a runner. Over and over and over again. How do we get it to Kudus and Bowen in seconds? They remind me of something I learned in stand-up years ago, which was if you're doing a joke and you've had a laugh in the middle of your setup, you've already done the joke. Move on. And that's David Moyes. Are we in their half? Yes, well, you've done it. So don't worry about 8 more passes. Don't worry about keeper to centre half and do all that. Get it there. I want it there, not here. And sometimes when it goes wrong, it can look like spinning in behind to nowhere. When it goes right, and suddenly out of nowhere, 5 players are converging on your 3 defenders, you can be in serious trouble. And some of the wins this year, Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Brighton, Arsenal again in the league, Manchester United, really impressive. And 3 weeks ago, when we were talking about David Moyes, what did he need? He needed impressive home wins. He'd done everything. But last year's home form and last year's league form, as you alluded to, was diabolical. He had to improve that, and he has. He had to get some home wins. He beat Wolves 3-0 and Man United 2-0, then went to Arsenal and win. Every time you think he's done, he turns it around again. With Brighton, you can't discount the injuries here. I did slightly earlier on with the Tottenham game because they were in a similar boat. But Ansu Fati came in, had a massive impact, still not available. And Cisse missed the entire season. No, Veltman, Mitoma is now out. Webster still missing. Lamptey out again. Solly March is missing. Still got some great players doing some really good stuff. But to not have a particularly deep squad, you can't keep asking James Milner, Adam Lallana, Danny Welbeck, to keep performing week in, week out. You just can't. They've got to bring some players in. So, tricky one, this. I think West Ham might win this narrowly, but I think it screams draw. I think this is a game where if Brighton score, West Ham have got more than enough to get back into it. If West Ham score, I think Brighton have got more than enough to get back into it. I think that Brighton will have the ball. West Ham will defend narrow. The break for West Ham is going to be incredibly threatening. If anyone goes 2-0 up in this game, it is 1. But the draw here at 3.9, look at the Crystal Palace game. Look at the way West Ham play. If they can't get that opening goal from a corner, I think they are more than happy not to lose this. Draw, 3.6. 1-1, screams it. 7. I mean, again, I know I'm picking out exact scores, which is wild, but take the exact score and extrapolate from that. That would be your both teams to score element, which is delivered in all but one game for Brighton this season, I know. But there's just something about West Ham right now. 3 clean sheets in a row. Very, very cautious team. They'll treat Brighton like a top team. And I just don't know about it as much today. And also, not done too many today. Group bet, West Ham 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1 brings you at 4. Both teams could win it, but I think it'll be tight.
Amazing. That's everything you need to know on Matchday 20 in the Premier League. But before we go, what's your safe bet, Anaka, Tom?
Well, the safe bet is so ridiculously safe, I've got to make it slightly more risky because, look, City are going to win against Sheffield United, and I want that to be part of our group ACCA, but you got to make something on it. So make it minus 1.5 on the Asian handicap. It's still 1.3, but in the group, it'll bring us in something.
And what's your ACCA, Tom?
I haven't put City in my ACCA because it's so low, but I do have a nice 3-team ACCA for you. It's not particularly daring this week because I'm coming in a lot of 2s and 3s. It's annoying me. So it's a 3-team ACCA, brings you in at 3. Villa win, Arsenal win, Liverpool win. 3.4. Again, it's not a particularly risky ACCA, this, but that means you can lump on.
Amazing, Tom. Thanks a lot. The pleasure as always to be with you on the show. And thank you guys for watching, for leaving your comments. And do not forget, as always, to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Bye-bye, Tom. Have a happy New Year.